Have you ever felt like you were always the one chasing in a relationship? You give all your affection, but the other person gradually pulls away. And the more you try to hold on, the more they run. If you're stuck in this cycle, you may be dealing with an avoidant attachment style. I'm Jim Rohn, and in today's video, I'll help you understand exactly why avoidants pull away, and more importantly, how you can make them want to stay without having to chase. This will not only help you in your current relationship, but also change the way you attract the right people into your life. If you want deeper psychological insights and practical strategies to improve your relationships, hit the subscribe button now. And now, let's dive into the topic. I've noticed something interesting. When avoidants are around someone with a secure attachment style, they seem to stop running. In many cases, they even choose to stay. But what is it about securely attached individuals that creates this effect? Why do avoidants, who usually seek distance, feel safer around them? After much observation, I realized that this relates to a crucial psychological mechanism, one that even securely attached people may not be consciously aware of. Mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are a part of our brain that allows us to reflect the emotions and actions of others. When you see someone smile, you naturally feel inclined to smile back. When someone appears tense, you might feel pressure too, even without knowing why. This is how our brain helps us sync with our surroundings. Think about the last time you watched an emotional movie. You weren't the main character, you weren't actually experiencing the intense situations firsthand, yet you still felt joy, sadness, or anxiety as if it were your own experience. That's your mirror neurons at work. So how does this relate to relationships? The emotions you project in a relationship don't just affect you, they influence your partner as well. If you bring calmness, stability, and confidence, the other person, even if they have an avoidant attachment style, can start to feel safer. In a recent interview, I spoke with a member of our community named Tita. She accidentally discovered this when she tried to let go of a relationship. Tita shared that when she stopped chasing and seeking reassurance, her energy completely shifted. And strangely enough, the moment she stepped out of the orbit of the relationship, the other person came back, like a stretched rubber band snapping back into place. I've always believed in explanations backed by logic and science, so when I first heard about the idea that energy attracts others, I was skeptical. I didn't think people emitted some invisible aura that could change an avoidance behavior, and certainly securely attached individuals don't possess some secret magic that makes avoidance stop running. However, from a psychological perspective, there's a more reasonable explanation. What Tita called an energy shift could actually be the effect of mirror neurons. When she stopped clinging, no longer centered her world around the other person, and started focusing on herself, she wasn't radiating some mysterious force. Instead, she was exhibiting the behavior of a securely attached person, and this directly influenced how the avoidant reacted. Imagine if you constantly appeared anxious, afraid of being abandoned, and tried desperately to hold on to your partner. An avoidant person, already hypersensitive to dependency, would feel even more pressured and withdraw further. But if you remain calm, confident, and no longer make them the center of your emotional world, they will notice the difference, and by the principle of mirror neurons, they may start responding similarly, feeling less fearful, less avoidant, and more secure with you. In fact, you could say that this is the foundation of the secure attachment contagion effect, where by becoming emotionally grounded yourself, you help others learn to mirror that same stability. Now, to better understand this mechanism, let's take another look at attachment styles. There are two main groups: secure attachment. People who feel confident in love, are not afraid of abandonment, and do not avoid intimacy. Insecure attachment. This includes three subtypes: anxious, constantly seeking reassurance, afraid of abandonment, and prone to clinginess. Dismissive avoidant. Avoids intimacy, fears being controlled, and tends to withdraw when relationships become too close. Fearful avoidant. Desires connection but fears getting hurt, often displaying contradictory behaviors in relationships. If you've been following me for a while, you've probably heard me talk about this before. However, one of the most common misconceptions people have is believing that their attachment style is fixed. That if you are anxious, you will always be anxious, and if you are avoidant, you will always be avoidant. But that's not the case. A person's attachment style is not a life sentence. It can change, adapt, and be influenced by the environment and relationships they experience. For example, an anxious person in a relationship with someone who has a secure attachment style may gradually learn to be calmer, less fearful, and feel more stable in the relationship. They learn to regulate their emotions through the stability their partner provides. But if an anxious person becomes attached to an avoidant partner, the story is different. When the avoidant withdraws, it triggers the anxious person's deepest fear of abandonment. This creates a negative cycle. The more the anxious person craves reassurance, the more pressure the avoidant feels, leading them to withdraw even further. The same principle applies to avoidance. If they are with a securely attached person, they may gradually learn that intimacy is not as threatening as they once believed, and they will feel less defensive. But if they fall in love with an anxious person, someone who constantly seeks attention and validation, they may retreat even deeper into their avoidant tendencies to protect their sense of freedom. What's important here? No one is stuck in their attachment style forever. Attachment styles can change, for better or worse, depending on the environment and relationships they engage in. But why does this happen? What causes an attachment style to shift? I believe there are two key factors: mirror neurons and the contagion of secure attachment. As I mentioned earlier, mirror neurons help humans reflect the behaviors and emotions of those around them. If you display calmness, confidence, and emotional stability, the other person will unconsciously absorb those states. They may not realize it, but their brain is learning how to respond from you. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is anxious and tense. You would immediately feel the pressure, right? But if you are around someone who is stable, non-judgmental, and reliable, you will naturally feel safer. That's how the contagion of secure attachment works. But the impact of secure attachment contagion doesn't stop there. It's not just about adjusting personal emotions, it's about shaping the emotional atmosphere in a relationship. Avoidants, despite their tendency to maintain distance, are drawn to environments that provide them with a sense of safety. They do not actively seek attachment, but when they are with someone who is stable and non-pressuring, they gradually feel more at ease. However, one crucial thing to understand is this: anxious energy can push avoidance away, while secure energy can draw them back in. If you exhibit emotional neediness, demand reassurance, or try to control the relationship, it only amplifies their fear of being trapped. But when you remain calm, self-sufficient, and do not rely on their responses to determine your self-worth, you unconsciously create a space where they can feel safe enough to stay. So what is the most important takeaway here? It's not your words, not the tactics you use to make them stay, but your behavior and emotional state that truly determine the outcome. When you are confident and emotionally grounded, the avoidant, through the mechanism of mirror neurons, may begin to reflect that sense of security. They stop feeling pressured to withdraw because nothing is triggering their fear anymore. But does this always work? Will an avoidant automatically return and commit just because you become emotionally stable? Not at all. And to be honest, if I were to claim that this is a perfect formula for keeping an avoidant partner, that would be dangerous. Because here's the truth: while your emotional stability can influence them, it is not a magic solution. Relationships are not just about reacting to each other's behaviors. Avoidants don't leave simply because they sense insecurity from you. They leave because of deep-seated subconscious wounds, invisible fears ingrained since childhood. No matter how stable and secure you become, it does not guarantee that an avoidant person will change or stay. Because at its core, the issue lies within their defense mechanisms, not within you. They will only stop running when they are ready, not because you did everything right. Placing all the responsibility on yourself, believing that if you are patient and loving enough, you can save the relationship, is a dangerous trap. When that happens, you are no longer an independent individual in the relationship. Instead, you become someone constantly trying to heal or prove your worth, even when the problem was never yours to fix. A healthy relationship requires effort from both sides, not just one person carrying all the weight. So if you're looking for a guaranteed way to keep an avoidant from leaving, I want you to shift your perspective. Don't ask, how do I stop them from pulling away? Instead, ask yourself, am I living in alignment with my values, regardless of whether they stay or not? Because secure behavior doesn't just influence them, it helps you stay grounded in yourself. If you want to hold on to an avoidant at all costs, understand that you are engaging in a risky cycle. Relationships with avoidants often follow a familiar pattern. You love them and invest emotionally, they feel overwhelmed and withdraw. You feel desperate, decide to pull back and ignore them, they suddenly feel your absence and start coming back, you open up and let them in, and then the cycle repeats. At first glance, this may seem like a push and pull game that you can control. But in reality, with each repetition of the cycle, you lose a part of yourself. You don't just become emotionally drained, you gradually lose your inner stability. This isn't just momentary frustration or the pain of a breakup, it's a pattern that can leave you mentally exhausted. Even the most securely attached individuals can be affected if they continuously go through this cycle. Someone who was once emotionally grounded can suddenly become anxious and insecure if they are trapped in an unstable relationship. Mirror neurons don't just work in one direction, they reflect in both. Just as your stability and security can help an avoidant person feel less defensive, their anxiety, confusion, or insecurity can also have the opposite effect on you. When you constantly face their indifference, withdrawal, or push and pull behavior, your brain starts absorbing that emotional state. Gradually, their instability becomes your instability. This is why even securely attached individuals can find themselves becoming anxious, losing control, or even completely changing the way they behave in a tense relationship. Not because they were inherently insecure, but because they got caught in a cycle that eroded their own sense of stability. I've seen this happen too many times. Hundreds of my clients have entered a cycle of emotional exhaustion, where they try to hold on, adjust themselves, hoping that if they change something, the other person will stop pulling away, but in the end, they always return to the same place, only more drained than before. And that's why I believe the conversation around relationships and breakups needs to change. I'm not saying you should give up hope. I'm also not saying you shouldn't try to repair things if that's truly what you want. But what's crucial is that you don't make major decisions while in an emotionally unstable state. Because when you're trapped in an anxious cycle, your emotions feel like they're being tossed around in a storm. You see everything through a distorted lens where fear, loss, and desperation cloud the bigger picture. In that state, you're no longer making choices based on what's actually good for you, you're simply reacting on instinct. This is why internal stability is the most important thing. Before you think about holding on to someone, before you decide whether to go back or move on, stabilize yourself first. When your mind is clear, when your emotions are no longer overwhelming you, you'll be able to see things more objectively. And ironically, this shift in mindset creates an entirely different cycle. When you change your focus, everything else starts to shift as well. You build stability for yourself, they notice it and become curious. You stop chasing, they feel your absence and begin to return. You prioritize yourself, they feel safer and are drawn to your positive energy. Instead of falling into a draining cycle, you create a new one that makes you stronger. What's important here? When you stop trying to change them, you also stop triggering their fear. You no longer pressure them or make them feel trapped. Instead, you embody confidence and independence, and that unconsciously influences them. But let's be realistic, this doesn't mean they will immediately come back and commit to you. However, what is certain is that you will no longer lose yourself in the relationship. That said, this is not the end of the journey, because when you start changing, you will soon face another challenge. The temptation to return to the old cycle. I've seen this happen so many times. Everything is going well, you feel stronger, less dependent, but then the avoidant person comes back, or something reminds you of the past relationship. Suddenly you feel the urge to try again, to believe that this time things will be different. At first, it may seem subtle, a random message, a fleeting thought that says, maybe this time will be different. But if you're not careful, you might fall right back into the familiar cycle, giving too much, making them feel pressured, and then being left behind once again. This is why change is not enough. You need to maintain it. There will be moments when you want to go back just because it feels familiar. There will be times when you question yourself. Am I doing the right thing? But remember, the more you return to the old cycle, the more you encourage them to continue their avoidant behaviors. And that's why learning to say no to temptation is crucial. Or better yet, walking away when you realize they don't appreciate the person you've become. Earlier, I shared the story of a woman in our community who unintentionally attracted back every avoidant person in her life, simply by changing herself. But the most important part wasn't that they came back. It was how she responded when they did. He said, "I can't force her to stay. A relationship needs to come from both sides. So I let her go." In the end, the most important thing is not how to keep an avoidant person, but how to ensure that you don't lose yourself in the relationship. When you stop chasing, focus on your own stability, and establish healthy boundaries, you not only create a safer environment but also protect yourself from destructive cycles. Remember, true love is not about trying to hold on to someone, it's about choosing the right person, the one who chooses to stay. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss future topics. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever been caught in this cycle? What did you do to break free? I look forward to reading your thoughts. See you in the next video.